No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
All right, so welcome to the very first interview of the STRS podcast. I'm Captain Vermicelli, and I'm joined here by my co-host Spectre Mage. And
Hello.
Today we've got the opportunity to talk with Vast 79 and Sterling Archer, 1942 of the Supremacy League. You can find them at warshipsupremacyleague.com, which kicked off the opening matches this last weekend. Welcome, gentlemen. How you guys doing?
Thanks, guys. Good to be here. Thanks for having us.
So just start off the brief moment, and if you want to give us a kind of a bio, maybe your favorite ship class to play, how long you've been playing, and what clan you're in.
Vast 79, CEO, Task Force Apocalypse, also a proud member. I like cruisers and battleships.
Sterling, also of Task Force Apocalypse XO. Mostly cruisers. I play a little bit of battleships, a little bit of destroyers. Really anything but carriers.
Not a carrier player, huh?
Oh God, no.
All right, so I think we'd kick it off. We'd like to kind of take it back to the beginning, because you guys started this league in Season 1, correct?
Yeah, we did our first season, sort of organized it all last year in December before the break into the new year, and then ran it for, was it 6 weeks, I think, all said and done.
So what drove you to start that league?
Little bit of a couple things. So, firstly, Sterling and I got our start playing in MechWarrior. That's actually how we met each other. Was playing MechWarrior online.
Maybe we should actually start from the start fast.
Is that not the start? Back to
I meant,
37.
go linearly,
Oh, you're going to go way back. All right, let's do it. I played
Well, I
MWO.
mean, it
It
kind
was
of
good.
explains, how we started the league and why we started the league and what we based it on and stuff. So.
Okay, yeah, sure. Go ahead. Start from the beginning. Very, very beginning.
Well, it was a cold and rainy April apparently when I was born. No, well, we like I said, we have a history of playing MechWarrior online, and they actually have a really deep history of community-driven leagues and tournaments there. In fact, for the longest time, that was all they had. For anybody who sounds kind of familiar with wargaming, their pace of development is kind of similar. So using that background, when we came to Warships last year, we kind of mucked around for a bit. We met Sai when we first started playing last summer. And when Stilchin came up with his rule set for scrimming, if you guys remember using that last fall, we kind of talked about it and thought that the next logical step would be like a little bit more organization with it, right? Which brought us to running Supremacy for Season 1. So that's kind of how we got there in a nutshell.
So when you started it, did you guys initially reach out to Wargaming and kind of put the feelers out, or did you just go solo?
No, we went solo, actually. Sterling and I kind of sat down and hashed out the rule set. Got a couple of the guys on board in the clan to help us give us a hand reading stuff, and from there we kind of reached out through one of the clan meetings that you guys had over here on the Poseidon team speak, and kicked a few tires and got a little bit of interest going, and ended up pulling in 6 teams for the first season.
So when you pulled in those 6 teams, I mean, getting it started, did you borrow a lot from the format from the MWO universe, or what was your hardest challenge in pulling all the clans together for that participation?
I think the hardest part was actually trying to drive interest. I don't think that a lot of the clans saw like a requirement for it, right? And this was pre-team battle as well. But what was going on, I think that there was still enough like kind of content that guys were coming in and they didn't think they needed to do something third party through the training room to keep driving interest in for their clans, right? And that's what we kept harping on when we were talking to guys to come play. We were like, listen, like this is a way for you guys to drive interest in something that's a bit more competitive than just jumping in with 3 guys in a div and going to stomp around the pub queue, right? This is a way to, originally we sold it to kind of simulate maybe what Clan Wars would be like. I kind of had a thought in my head that it probably wasn't going to be what a Clan Wars style of match is going to look like when Wargaming gives it to us. But guys kind of like bought into that too, and that helped bring them in. So I didn't want to like rain on anybody's parade by saying I don't think this is how it's going to play out, right? But That's how we sold it in the end. We're like, this is something a bit more competitive. It's a step up from playing random divs in the random pub queue, and it's something else to do that's team driven, right? That was the big point, was that it was team driven. So
yeah, I mean, we participated in it too, and so when you pulled it together and you had 6 clans, can you kind of talk us through how you decide on the rule set and the number? Because I remember there was a lot of churn over how many people per side and whether or not we're going to do tier 8 or tier 10, and a lot of like personal policing. And I imagine that presented some challenges when it came to adjudicating any disputes. Did you have any big disputes that came up?
off the top of my head, I don't think we had anything really major, right? Like, we wrote the rule set up. Like I said, we borrowed a lot from the original scrim document that was put out for the guys that were doing the scrims back in the fall, and then we took it from there, and then we started to adjust and kind of make that, I won't say make that document our own, but make the idea of our own with that document as a base, right? When we discussed it, we thought 8v8 was probably the best spot to be, because by far we think it's the best balanced tier, right? Like tier 8. Apologize. Tier 8 is by far the best balance. 8v8 we thought was a good number because if you're a small clan, hopefully pulling 8 guys in isn't a huge deal, right? As opposed to trying to pull 12 in. And we noticed that sometimes when we were trying to do like clan scrims, that trying to do a 12v12, you'd have guys having issues, pulling in their 12th guy, right? They'd have like 10, 9. So we kind of figured that 8 was probably like a nice, well-rounded spot to be at.
You mentioned that this is the second season of Supremacy League. Is that correct?
Right. That's correct.
All right. Could you go over were there any major changes between going from season 1 to season 2? Was there any particularly strong feedback that you guys took into account to change the rules?
I would say most of our rule changes weren't necessarily strong feedback. It's just experiences we had playing. Wanted to do a few more players than tier 8, so we're kind of one of the big things we were kicking around was how many players do we want to do on each side, and we kind of took advice from everyone in the community. We had a lot of people want to do 12. A lot of people wanted to stay at 8. We settled on 9 because it adds an extra player, but you still don't have a huge amount of players, so each player on your team is pretty much vital. If you go and play 12v12, a lot of times on these maps, the 12v12 is just crazy and hectic, and there's less strategy as much as it becomes just a giant team brawl. With 8 or 9 players, you're forced into playing a very strategic game, and every player counts.
And it's also probably more manageable for the callers as well, right? If you have slightly fewer players to manage than 12 people all running off doing their own thing. Trying to
get games with 12 players in the training room for each side is just it's a circus, man. So 9v9 has ended up working really well. It seems to be a nice number, 9 right now.
The other point with that too is we wanted to find a way to kind of differentiate what we're doing from Wargaming's team battles, right? And we figured adding 2 extra guys in there would help that.
Well, so I was going to ask you about that. I mean, the format this year feels very similar. It's up tier and add 2 players, but it came after the team battle release, which I feel kind of struggled a little bit. But how do you think that fit in?
I mean, I think if you look at season 1, team battles came between season 1 and 2, if memory serves. So I guess we kind of predicted in a lot of ways what team battles were kind of be like, but I think I don't know, maybe Vass agrees with me, but I think our format is actually a little bit stronger than the team battles is right now, personally.
Speaking of team battles, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, yeah.
Speaking of, these organizations, I mean, obviously you guys are, competitive-minded individuals to come up with this clan. So far, looking at what Wargaming has put forward, what are your thoughts on Wargaming's team battle format and areas you think they could improve?
I honestly think that they should have given the North American server the option to play at T8 like the EU server got.
Agreed.
The biggest issue here is that we can't play at T8. There isn't the diversity in ships as there in T6 as there is at T8. So the strats all kind of end up being the same, right? The other issue I kind of have is the sorting for how the teams are rolling, right? I understand the higher up your team score goes, you're supposed to be playing higher teams, right? But there's not enough in the queue, so you're waiting. We've basically given up playing team battles in my team to speak because we we've got I think our highest team is 25 or something. But even with that team at a 4,800 team, we have to sit in the queue forever to get a team. And most of the time, if we do get a team, it's a team that's like 4,000 or less. So
Right, and so when you win, you don't even get that many points.
yeah, you don't move. And we've had a
Yeah.
couple matches, weirdly enough, where we've beaten teams that are a higher number than us, and we only get like a 25 plus bump, right? So something's a little screwy with the system, I think, as well that way every now and then.
So
Yeah,
you guys still actively try to play once in a while in team battles? I know for us, after about day number 3, we kind of stopped playing because there was no incentive, there's no additional money. It was kind of a really awkward tier, right? T6. And then on top of that, they didn't even have the ladder release at the beginning.
I'd like to say we do, maybe every now and then if the guys are kind of bored, but no, not really.
Speaking of wargaming and this sort of competitive thing, have you guys tried to reach out to them at all? With try to get like maybe some sort of support from their end for Supremacy League, or do you think maybe that they're more focused on their own first-party efforts to care?
I honestly have no idea. I mean, like I sent Nico a message. He's never gotten back to me. And I understand that he gets a ton of messages, right? So it's very well it may have been overlooked. I mean, I was asking to see if they would support Supremacy, right? Maybe jump in behind, throw a few prizes at the winning team if they had a chance or not, right?
Right.
So far, I haven't heard anything. I mean, we're gonna keep going as long as we can, right? Like our plan right now is to run season 3, right? We have a bit of a different perspective for how we're gonna run season 3, but the plan is there to run it.
Okay.
And keep going until either Clan Wars comes and nobody wants to do this style of thing, or someone shuts us down.
You got any, what do you mean? We'll come back to the shut you down part, but you got any spoilers for big changes in season 3?
Biggest thing's going to be we're going to use the ending scoring from season 1 to break into divisions to hopefully get guys into spots where they're going to play teams that are close to their skill set, right? The issue right now with this season, not that it's an issue, right? But we've almost doubled our team size, right? Initially, we had 14 teams sign up. We're down to 11. We had a couple teams had to pull out for different reasons. So we have a bunch of teams. We have some that played last season, like you guys and us and TSF. And we have a bunch of teams that have never done anything competitively at all, right? So we have a very broad spectrum of teams in there. Some of them are going to do really well. Some of them are probably not going to do well. So my goal, hopefully, for next season is to make sure that for the guys that are, in the middle or at the bottom, is to try and slot them into a division with some of the people that might be similarly placed so that they can have competitive matches there. And the guys at the top will also get a chance to have competitive matches, right?
So it's a bit like a matchmaking system almost.
Yeah, almost, right? Like, I know Vermicelli said that he played MechWarrior. Were you still around when they played it when MRBC started up?
I was. I remember
so
it well. I remember that tiering system.
That's kind of the format how MRBC runs, right? They break it down into divisions, and typically speaking, if you're a new team and you come in, you start in the bottom division, you have to work your way up from there each season, right? So that's kind of the format we're going to look to replicate from season 3 on.
Well, some of these newer teams you were talking about, to go back to that, do you get a good feel for how big those clans are? Are they mostly a small, lean and mean team, or?
You know what? From the roster sizes that guys have submitted, I don't think we've seen a roster size smaller than like 20 people. So to me, that indicates like some of the clans aren't very big, but they have some health to them, right? Like we didn't get a roster where somebody only had the minimum, which was what we were asking for, was 12.
So if you have you done a tally of all the rosters to kind of get a feel for how many total players are participating in your league?
I'd have to go look for you. I think we've got 10 players per page on the player sheets if you go to the league website, and I think there's 54 pages.
I think
Now-
there are 431 people rostered.
Yeah.
If I'm reading this right.
So when
Now
you
keep in mind, I mean, some people did like some people rostered their entire clan, right? Like I think Land at Versailles has rostered everybody that comes in here, just to make sure that everybody's covered. And some teams went the route where they only roster the guys that were going to play.
So do you guys get a chance running the league to actually enjoy playing, or are you guys mostly sitting the bench trying to run this on the weekends now?
I get to enjoy it. Vass is kind of 50-50, it seems like right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of the face, so I do a lot of the running around on the Saturday nights when guys are in the team speaks and they're having issues or they have questions and stuff. in the end, it's not a big deal. I mean, that's part and parcel of taking this on, right? Is maybe not getting to enjoy it. But I mean, on the flip side of that, I've had pretty much every guy from every clan that's a rep say they appreciate what we're doing and for thanking us for putting this on. So that is its own reward, right?
Can you give us a little bit of insight on like what kind of like this behind the scenes work is like? I mean, obviously there's a lot of coordination between clans, making sure everyone shows up at the same time and everything. But what are some of all the more, it's like the more arcane aspects that maybe we don't see as readily?
You know what? A lot of it is actually the data entry on the website side. I spent probably 2.5 hours of my Sunday putting in all the data from the screenshots because we're doing internal stat tracking on the website. By the way, Vermicelli, nice work. I believe you are number 2 right now in kills after week 1.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it.
So, like it's a lot of this stuff is time consuming, right? It's not a big deal. I mean, obviously, if I didn't want to do it, then we wouldn't have stepped up. The other thing is organizational, right? Because we've got the rule set and it hasn't changed, but some kind of guys have questions about it, right? Previous to coming into drops, so you got to kind of talk about people with their rules. A couple of the teams had their reps change before the start of week 1, so pull those guys in, go through the rule sets, right? Adding players because our roster rules are that you can add guys to your roster up until drop time on Saturday night. So like we have a drop window this season between 8:30 and 9. So all of a sudden you got guys like emailing in, like trying to get a couple guys added to their roster and stuff. So there's a bunch of like it's not like there's anything magic and arcane about it, but there is some back work that typically needs to be done on a Saturday night. And if I'm trying to play and do that, I can't focus on one or the others. So, and I'm only mediocre as in the end anyway.
Fair enough.
Bench myself to make sure my team wins.
So, if you can remind everyone who won last season,
that was us.
And how bad did you beat everyone?
You know what? We had some pretty tight matches. In all honesty, like a lot of our matches were 2-1 out of the best of 3s. And the best of 5 playoffs with Team Special Forces went the full 5. I believe it's up on iChase's YouTube page as well. Still, the entire 5 matches. If you got a couple hours, you want to go burn and watch it. So yeah, I mean, it's not like it was a runaway. I have a sinking suspicion, this feeling that OP might be the runaway team this season. They're definitely going to be the team to beat. They're a tough team, and they bring a lot of talent, a lot of organization. Right? We've seen it if you've played them in team battles, and they're keeping that up in Supremacy as well. So you don't think you're the favorites going in as the title holders going into this season? I'm just saying that when we run into we're playing OP on Saturday night, so it's gonna be a tough go. It's gonna be a hard slog, and it's gonna be a hard slog for any team this season. But I honestly expected that when OP signed up, and I'm happy they're here because they're gonna kind of drive some of us underneath them to work on improving our strategies and getting better. Right?
Yeah, you have to remind me. I don't have the roster in front of me, but that's the crew that was a lot of the solo ranked battle players, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
I think most of us who've ever done the solo rank battles, we're pretty familiar with that. You think I haven't seen any notes or anything about when the single rank battles are going to come back? And
actually, rumor has it's coming back like in the end of this month-ish or something like that.
Do you think we'll see an impact on the league as the weeks go on, as we can do this, as far as participation if that comes out?
You know what? I don't think so. I mean, we're only running on one night a week now, right? We're running Saturday nights. We run a double header on Saturdays now instead of the 2 single games that we did during season 1. And typically speaking, it's taking like 2.5 hours if you play all 3 matches, right? So,
sure, but there's a hidden
at the top and you're
there's a hidden part of that, right? Which you might play for 2 or 3 hours on that night, but I'm sure you practice throughout the week.
Oh no, I don't. I guarantee that the teams that are good and like really think about this are practicing, right? And that's no different than any other game, right? To be honest, when ranked play opens up against solo, the window is going to be long enough for a lot of us that you can get through it, even taking some time off to practice with your clan or play Supremacy, right? Like I'm literally a mediocre player, and I still ground myself out to rank 1 during season 2, just through sheer determination. So.
I think that's how we all kind of feel about it. No one really does it for fun. They do it for the reward and to just get it over with.
Yeah, pretty much.
All for that pirate flag.
Well, speaking of the ranked and the team battles, going into the season after your first round of play, and with team battles, you saw certain techniques in team battles. Do you see any of those kind of things being imported into the gameplay, or do you think it's a totally different dynamic?
You know what? I think it's a little too early to kind of tell yet. We've only played 2 matches, right? Ask me in a couple more weeks, and I'll see if I have an answer for you.
Well, on a related note, if you don't mind, I just want to get your guys' take on just a general the sense of game balance at Tier 8. Like, do you guys? I know that in ranked battles, at least, like he's mentioned, there a bit of a meta sort of started to get formed. But what are your thoughts on just ship balance in general? Because
I
there's a
think
lot of
8.
different opinions going around.
I would say 8 is probably the most balanced tier. I think overall. I think there's really only one glaring problem at tier 8, and I think that's the Mikhail and the Atago are honestly far superior ships to everything else in their class. I mean, it'd be a problem even if they weren't premium ships. So, unfortunately, if you look at all of what people are playing, like the last week or two, like almost every team's had like a Mikhail Kutsev. Between the smoke and the AA and stuff, it's really hard to beat it. On the flip side, the Atago is also extremely good at what it does. So, unfortunately, like the New Orleans and the Megami and the Hip are like for team battles right now or league. I just don't think we're going to see them as often, and I don't think they're as competitive, to be honest. So I would say that's the one glaring problem, unfortunately, and I think that's just that it feels like they were testing some new stuff for those 2 premiums, and they haven't really gotten around to working on the rest of the cruisers at Tier 8, unfortunately.
Well, without revealing any of your guys' current strategies or anything, at least for me, I feel like cruisers in a competitive sense, not the pug sense, are in a really bad place. You won't see teams bring more than 1 or 2 tops, and only for really specialized function and try and really protect them. I mean, I personally think the Hipper's probably the best one out of the Tier 8 cruisers, but again, it doesn't really have a place in this kind of battleship destroyer kind of meta, I would call it.
Your guys' thoughts?
I would have to tend to agree with you. I think there's a place for cruisers right now, but it's really hard to argue cruisers over, the HP pool of another battleship, another 60, 70,000 hit points. With I think pretty much every team is running 4 battleships right now. I mean, we could probably debate, strategy all day long, but I think at least after preseason and week 1, it seems like the current meta is favored pretty heavily towards only like 1, maybe 2 cruisers. Obviously, as Vaz said earlier, we still got a lot of stuff to shake out. So I think the meta is going to change through the season. I really hope it changes through the season, to be honest, because that keeps things really interesting. Watching teams play the same strategies over and over all season, I think is boring for everyone. So I'm hoping we're going to see some meta changes. I don't know what that's going to be right now, but I got to agree with you that the cruisers are they're not in an amazing place.
When you came in, I mean, it was kind of the same way in the last round, but we had more players, so there was more of a place for more cruisers. Did you ever consider or look at for the next season maybe limiting the number of battleships even more?
We'll see. I mean, like we'll take some team consideration as we go to the rule set, right? Just like we did at the end of season 1, going into season 2. I mean, I'm not against it by any means. I think that right now, I think 4 might be too many, but we've kind of like let it go that way, and it is what it is. I mean, the bright side about this league is that you know who you're playing in advance, right? You know what maps you're playing on. You know who you're playing, so you do have the ability to kind of like go test stuff previous to your matches, right? Like when we played the Mutineers on Saturday night, they were only running 3 battleships. And they went a little bit cruiser heavy, and they were really well at their focus fire, and they kind of like made us pay in a couple matches to their battleships for it. So it can be done. I mean, the extra HP pool of a BB is nice, but if you have the right guys and they're on point, an extra cruiser can do things, right? The problem there is I'm with you, Vermicelli. I love it. I love a Hipper, but if there's not a lot of cruisers on the enemy team, the Hipper's just not doing what you need to do, right? It's not going to light a fire like an Atago or a Kutsev, right? So
Yeah, that's kind of a shameless lobby, right?
it makes me hurt, man, because I love my hipper. I love my hipper to death, but
Give it a repair, make it a premium, and call it a day.
maybe.
Prince Eugen.
Fair enough. So I guess that kind of pretty much wraps it up. Is there anything you want to leave us with, or anything you'd want to address to a team or someone considering that thinks it's kind of too daunting to get in for season 3?
I would definitely say if you're new and you want to get into season 3, it's probably the best time to do it, right? You'll start in the lower division or lower divisions, depending on how many teams we have, right? So you'll be with other guys that are starting fresh and brand new. And don't let it be daunting, right? Like, the only way you're going to learn anything from it is to actually jump in and do it, right? You have to start somewhere. Why not start here?
The flip side to that is there's probably a lot of teams looking for extra players for season 2. You know, even if you don't get to play a lot of matches, just a little bit of experience in season 2 really going to help you for season 3. You know, that first match you play competitively is always like, it's just not great. Like, I remember my first like competitive matches playing mechs, and it was kind of rough. Like, so the sooner you get in, you know, the more comfortable you get into it. And you know, there's a lot of teams looking for players season 2. So if anyone's listening and they're interested in playing in season 2, you know, there's 12 teams, you know, all looking for players. So my advice would be to look for a team.
The last thing I'll throw in there is that it's such a different flavor playing something like this, right? Than it is playing like with your 3 random guys in a pub div, right? Because you know your division goes one way and everybody else goes the other way, and you watch like one side of the map get slaughtered, right? It's such a different flavor of play when you've got 9 guys and one guy's like calling the shots and moving everybody in the same direction and like orchestrating it, right? It just plays so much differently, and that in itself is such a great thing to experience in any game, right? Not just this one, but any game. So if you're looking to do it, definitely come give it a go. Poke around, so the teams might want you, or you can set something up for season 3.
All right, you got anything, Spectre?
No. Pretty much it.
All right, guys. Well, make sure you guys, anyone listening, checks out the Supremacy League at worshipsupremacyleague.com. And guys, I really appreciate you taking the time out to talk with us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. I appreciate we get to be your very first interview for this.
Be gentle. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.